The Cambridge Analytica scandal is entirely played out in the realm of narrative, not in the realm of facts. As a result, that's where we should play it as well. We need to become more efficient reactionaries. Let's explore. Hello everyone and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Alright, so over the last 10 days or so, we've been watching let's call it the fallout from the supposedly spectacular scoop initially published by the far-left conspiracist British blog The Guardian. A bit unusual for the current climate, but nobody really disagrees over the facts. And the facts are pretty simple. Someone made several personality tests and then shared them throughout the internet and particularly on Facebook, and whenever some poor sucker would take the bait, the user would also be asked to provide his consent for providing the test with some more access to various bits of data so as to make the personality test allegedly more accurate. Then the data collected was used for targeted political advertisement. That's it. I mean, nothing spectacular, really. Now, in light of this so-called scandal, the right replied with context, such as the context of the fact that targeted advertising, political or otherwise, is really nothing new, or that targeted political advertising based on a database collected beforehand, including and especially from Facebook, is also nothing new. I mean, at the end of the day, the Obama campaign used it in both 2008 and 2012, and especially in 2012, to a scale comparable or higher than what the Donald Trump campaign used in 2016. In fact, in 2012, even the left-wing press explained that one of the reasons Mitt Romney underperformed as the Republican candidate at the time was precisely because his campaign's data operation was outdated and primitive, whilst Obama's was, of course, top-notch. Time magazine, for instance, was writing in 2012, after Barack Hussein Obama won for the second time, the following quote: more than 1 million Obama backers who signed up for the app gave the campaign permission to look at their Facebook friend lists. In an instant, the campaign had a way to see the hidden young voters. Roughly 85% of those without a listed phone number could be found in the uploaded friend lists. What's more, Facebook offered an ideal way to reach them. People don't trust campaigns. They don't even trust media organizations, says Goff. Who do they trust? Their friends. The campaign called this effort targeted sharing, and in those final weeks of the campaign, the team blitzed the supporters who had signed up for the app with requests to share specific online content with specific friends simply by clicking a button. More than 600,000 supporters followed through with more than 5 million contacts asking their friends to register to vote, give money, vote, or look at a video designed to change their mind. A geek squad in Chicago created models for vast data sets to find the best approaches for each potential voter. We're not just sending you a banner ad, explains Dan Wagner, the Obama campaign's 29-year-old head of analytics who helped oversee the project. We are giving you relevant information from your friends, close quote. So, any questions so far? The trouble is that this scandal is not being fought in the realm of facts. Nobody seriously disagrees with anything I have just said so far. Also, everyone knows why this is an issue, and it wasn't in 2012. After all, there is even email evidence that the staff at Facebook was not just leaning left, but an active part of the Democrat campaign both in 2012 and 2016. Pointing out the hypocrisy here, whilst indeed true, is unproductive from a practical politics standpoint because, well, nobody cares. What matters is the narrative. And the right has gotten significantly better in the last couple of years at crafting and successfully deploying narratives, but we're still far behind in reacting to narratives in successful ways. And this is not a surprise. Being a reactionary is oftentimes useful, but being an efficient reactionary is, well, hard work. So, how would an efficient counter-narrative look like? Well, here comes the controversial part of this video. And by controversial, I mean in the sense of debatable, since there is no fully correct answer to this question. But there are trends that are better than others, or superior trade-offs, if you like. So, first of all, the responding narrative has to co-opt and amplify the legitimate concerns of the scandal. The scandal, as framed by the left right now, relies on the allegedly problematic nature of using data to manipulate elections. Of course, if we want to be pedantic, we can point out ad nauseam that what is actually going on is the manipulation of data that was consensually given away by users and was then sold and reinterpreted in a manner that might be sleazy or immoral, but definitely not illegal. After all, the fact that data is being shared with third parties is not a secret anymore, assuming it ever was a secret, and it is openly acknowledged in terms of service or in end-user agreements. As such, ignorance of the law and not paying attention to what you signed up for is not grounds for legal claims. However, we can claim that the very idea of sharing such data is haram, and that such practices are not some bizarre anomaly of Cambridge Analytica, but rather an industry standard that needs to change. Basically, we can and should say that privacy matters. Or, as I said back in October 2016, technology ought to be used in a conservative manner. The only one on the right that I've seen using this type of counter-narrative so far is Mike Cernovich, who pointed out correctly that such behavior exists even at the allegedly concerned New York Times, whose application collects the exact same type of data and behaves exactly in the same manner as Cambridge Analytica. But this should go beyond just that. Basically, we need to hijack the narrative to bring back privacy concerns on the table. Secondly, there is let's call it a subplot to this narrative that has emerged as well, namely the plot of bashing Facebook. The most advanced individual on this particular subthread of the narrative is Brian Acton, one of the founders of WhatsApp, who got a lot of shekels when the app was sold to Facebook. This subplot should also be amplified. In fact, I was a bit ahead of the curve on this one since I ditched my Facebook activity at the beginning of this year and stopped promoting the channel's page. But a lot more can be done in terms of practical politics. For instance, we could spend some time making everyone's lives worse on Facebook, especially by targeting leftists who support censorship. And I'm not joking. Facebook is full of bad code, astonishing vulnerabilities, and crap algorithms. That's why it deploys all sorts of weird suspensions and sanctions. For many years, few people cared about that because they were largely hitting right-wingers. But now, the game has changed. And the best thing we can do is to amplify the whole controversy. I mean, why not? I mean, when we say the market will solve the problem, we also need to bear in mind that we are the market. Basically, what I am saying here is never let a good crisis go to waste. The cathedral is going after Facebook for arguably the smallest infraction they ever committed, because the substance of the Cambridge Analytica pseudo-scandal is even less than a nothing burger. It is non-existent. But if this pseudo-scandal can help in the wider goal of taking down Facebook, then it would be quite a shame to miss this great opportunity. Ultimately, this scandal is a lot more marginal than the media would have you believe. The vast majority of the people, for better and worse, don't give a toss about this. That is, in a way, a good thing, because all the bellyaching of the cathedral media sounds quite empty, since it is for the most part self-interested ventriloquism. On the other hand, it is not good news that the vast majority of the people don't care about online privacy. So by creating and amplifying a more generalized disdain for Facebook, we can increase the cadre of folks who do care about online privacy. Because it is largely inefficient to leave such an important topic on the hands of minuscule organizations. Privacy is relevant for everyone, and it should be a topic dominated by the non-left for, at the very least, the next 10 years. So, to sum up, our narrative should sound like this. Yes, Cambridge Analytica behaved in a slimy but not illegal manner, just like the New York Times, the Washington Post, Salon, Slate, the Obama campaign, and Facebook itself before. The fact that we're met with so much outrage only now, after a decade since the practice became entrenched, and only after the practice has been used intelligently by the non-left, tells me that this is a good moment to talk about privacy practices in general and the chronic lack of political diversity in tech. And from there on, just adapt your discourse depending on what the opponent is saying. The framing, however, should be in these particular terms. Use the crisis to push our ideas. I'm not saying this is going to be a silver bullet. There are no such thing as silver bullets in politics. But what I am saying is that there's nothing wrong in cynically using this crisis as a launching pad for more of our ideas into the mainstream. This is what the left has been doing for almost 100 years, and especially in the last 50 years. Use any concern as a launching pad for their totalitarian project. Chief example is the legitimate and distinctly right-wing Republican concern of ending Jim Crow and state-enforced segregation. The left took that and used it to force you to believe that men can be women and force you to break your deeply held religious views under the threat of bankruptcy or worse. I'm not joking when I say that we must turn the tables and respond in kind. Ideally, this crisis should be used to then compel companies to adopt encryption and open source as the norm, and also change their revenue model. And while we're at it, to also boot any organization or individual who argues for censorship. I mean, it's only fair. Those who advocate a policy should be the first ones to experiment living under that particular policy. So yeah, this is how this should be framed, and not just for the next month or for the duration of this scandal, but for the next 10 years at the very least. Our opposition has no qualms in using examples of events from which nobody is even alive today. So I see no issue in us using the events from 2012 to make our case for the next 10 years. Persistence and stubbornness are key to these kinds of long-term issues. We won't get what we want tomorrow or even next year, but keeping with a narrative similar to what I've just outlined for the next 10 years with a 10% hardline minority, yeah, we will get most of what we want. And if we're lucky, we'll get all of what we want and then some on this topic. But the work of keeping up with the narrative, turning the tables and compelling the opposition to live up to the rulebook will have to be constant and consistent. Just saying. Alright, enough for now. I'll get back to this a bit when I'll publish the long format video on the 10% rule, which should come out while I'm on the tour in Albania, so stay tuned for that. And with all of that being said, thank you all for watching. Thank you for your continuous and generous support. Please do consider throwing a shekel if you derive any value from the work being done here. And I will see you all soon on Freedom Alternative.